All right, we're live. Welcome everybody to this week's Coffee and Pan Dulce. We got a great show. We are joined by our amazing host, Christian Cano. We have John Lipsick and little Bernie dressed up like the inauguration is on his to-do list, but is not his whole day. Super fantastic. We'll be joined later by Mamma Ruth and Barb, hopefully. But today, right now, it's just us, I guess, four. And we'll be introducing ourselves with our imaginary button. So I'm Steven DiFiore. I'm the recording secretary for the Mecklenburg County Libertarian Party. And my imaginary button from here on into whenever is anti-war. I am an anti-war individual. I do not think that we should have our troops in other countries overseas if it's not an imminent security threat. Right now, we have American troops guarding foreign oil fields, and we have to ask ourselves, why is that worth American blood and treasure? So that's mine. On to you, Christian.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Ponduce. I'm Christian Cano. It is January 27th. Wow, January is going fast, just like 2020. I'm Christian Cano, one of your other co-hosts to Coffee and Ponduce, and we're sharing our imaginary buttons. And so let's go with Josh. And Josh, how do you pronounce your last name?
Lipack.
Lipack. Okay, well, we were completely off.
I do apologize. As you can see, my last name gets mispronounced all the time too.
DiFiore. It's taken me a long time to pronounce. I just call him Steven.
Yeah, so, you still can't pronounce it, but it's okay.
That's right. So Joshua, in 30 seconds, can you introduce yourself? And if you had an imaginary button, what would that be?
Well, as you said, my name is Josh Lipack, and I'm a native Charlottean that is currently an applicant being considered to fill the at-large vacancy on City Council. You're going to have to tell me, though, how do you mean imaginary button?
Some cause or...
So like Christian has a Moms Demand Action, support Medicare for all, believe all women, stuff like that. So he actually has a button on his jacket. So if you had a button and you'd wear it proudly, what button would that be?
Well, if I had to choose one word to describe what my intention would be going into City Council, it would be equity. I've honestly enjoyed watching the city grow throughout my life as a Charlottean. It's almost been like a pastime for me. So being able to help continue fostering that growth that we've been nationally recognized for now for a couple decades, and being able to do that in a way that all Charlotteans can stand to benefit from that growth, that would be, if I had to say, my main intent in doing this.
Well, that's a fantastic button to have.
Yeah, well, thank you. And isn't that crazy that we just assume people watch the show all the time and they know how to introduce themselves? It's like
we have such big heads. Oh boy.
Yeah, you're like, you should know how it works. We gave you 10 seconds before the show.
My first thought was one of those "that's easy" buttons. So I wasn't 100% sure.
Well, listen, welcome to Coffee and Ponduce. This is our 18th show. We've been on for a little over 2 years. We air every Wednesday, and we do this just to kind of educate people and let them know what's going on in the city of Charlotte and around the country. And in case you cannot see, if you're looking at your screen, we actually have Bernie with us. The Bernie meme has replaced Baby Trump Piñata. So we'll see how long we can keep Bernie interested in the show. You can see him, he's very interested. He's masked up and got his gloves and mittens and all that kind of stuff. So we want to welcome Bernie with us. Baby Trump Piñata is no longer with us, and we will see how many times we don't have to mention the former president. So speaking of the former president.
You mean Trump?
So we want to always salute to our neighbors, Coffee and Ponduce, as we do on show. So if you have a cup or if you have a cup of coffee or whatever, we want to salute to Coffee and Ponduce. Welcome, everyone. Oh, I needed coffee this morning. And also, we want to also recognize Manolo's Bakery, who's our Ponduce sponsor. Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue. Please remember to support your Black and brown small businesses in the city of Charlotte and all small businesses in the city of Charlotte during this global pandemic. If you can't go in, order it to go. maybe 2 times a week. It'll keep people surviving at least until we can get the city opened and the school open. So, we wanted to talk briefly about the school CMS openings, but I don't think this is probably the time and the place.
I think we should wait because I
Yeah.
am interested in Josh
Yes.
and his application for James Smudgy Mitchell's open seat. So, Josh, why do you want to be on the city council? And can you tell the viewers a little bit about the process involved in filling a vacant seat?
Sure, yeah, and this process is pretty new to me, and I don't think it happens too frequently. And it's been a bit of a whirlwind because it's January 19th, the vacancy was announced. Application process, I believe, opened on the 20th, closed yesterday, and there'll be a public forum this Friday. And I believe the city council is voting the following Monday, February 1st, and the new successor to that seat will swear in on Tuesday.
So when you first heard the seat was opening, did you read it in the newspapers? One of your buddies call you up? How did you come into that information?
Sure. So a friend of mine who I backed for North Carolina State House this past election reached out to me and said that I should go out for it. And I hadn't obviously anticipated this. So first thing I did was I started researching all the current short-term and long-term projects that our elected city leaders have set. And the more I read about them, the more interested I became. And, being that this is only to fill the remainder of the current term, which is only about 10 months from now, however short that period may be, as someone who's lived here my whole life, as someone who's practiced real estate law for the last 5 years, and who thoroughly enjoys watching this city grow and develop over time, I would love to have that opportunity to help them achieve those goals. And like I said earlier, be able to find ways to make sure that if our city is going to be known nationally as one of prosperity, that it should mean that for everyone who lives here as well.
Well said. Well said.
Well said. So Josh, have you been involved? I mean, I know you said you're a native Charlottinian. I always have a hard time pronouncing that. Charlottinian, you know what I mean. Charlatan, that's a different word.
Charlatan, oh my gosh.
Charlatan. So have you been involved in the community, or is that how you got engaged in the possibility of being appointed for the seat?
Yeah, I've been involved, but not so much in the political arena. I did help a friend with a campaign that he ran for city council in 2014. But I've been more out of the political arena. So most recently, I served on the board of directors for Rebuilding Together of Greater Charlotte. It's a nonprofit organization that helps lower income individuals stay in their homes if major repairs are needed that they can't necessarily afford on their own. Before that, I was on the board of directors for Stonewall Sports. It's a local LGBTQ and ally sports league. I was the community outreach and development director there. And then in law school, I was a member of the Civil Rights Clinic. So I was involved in various projects, and I served as a hearing officer for the Charlotte Housing Authority. So there's been all these sort of little things here and there, but never quite in the public sphere.
Well, I mean, do you think that's going to be an obstacle you have to overcome? Because, Charlotte's all about it's all about politics. All the city council members, it's all about, I'm sure there are people pressuring them right now. Hey, so-and-so's a precinct chair, so-and-so is, this or that. I mean, do you think, or have you felt that might be something that is something you have to overcome to be appointed?
Sure. And honestly, I think it could go either way. I do know there's at least 2 or 3 former councilmen and one councilwoman who are also possibly applying. But their record could help or hurt them. And, I want to come into this from the mindset that isn't so much political, but rather knowing and understanding what I believe needs to be done to have our economy and our housing market and all of that continue to grow, and focus on the details of that without making it too much about politics. So maybe it'll help me. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Great question. I mean,
So so the seat that you're applying for is being vacated by James Smudgy Mitchell, and anyone who knows local politics knows that James is kind of a fixture of Charlotte local politics. He's been in the local politics business for many years. He's a very charismatic and outgoing guy. Everyone knows who he is. Do you have any sort of trepidation or nervousness about filling the big shoes that the James legacy has kind of that he's leaving behind for whoever fills that seat?
I haven't thought too much about that because at this point, my aspiration, I'm not really thinking too much further past these next 10 months. Just wanting to get in and help them with these ongoing projects, particularly amidst all the uncertainty that we have right now. So, finding that same level of recognition and publicity isn't necessarily a goal of mine.
Oh, well said. Well said. Are there particular projects that you're really interested in tackling? It's is there a top three short-term local projects that you're ooh, I really want to dig into this and really help this move forward?
Sure. Yeah. Well, big picture, you have the 2040 plan, which focuses pretty heavily on our infrastructure, which, if you've ever been to a city like Atlanta, if we want to keep growing the way that we have been, that's definitely a concern that we want to address, investing in that infrastructure and in particular, transportation. So you have the Charlotte Moves Task Force, but also more to the point of equity, you have plans to revitalize some neighborhoods where they may have been left behind, so quarters of opportunity. And then also another big project, which isn't quite related to the economy and infrastructure, but cure violence, to address some of the issues that we have in our community, to make sure that we're taking care of that as well.
Good. I just one more question. I know Steve has a question because I know you have to log off because you actually work. So I mean, I don't say that oh, you got to work, but I mean, you actually have to work something.
I feel like that's
here.
a pointed comment.
No. You know what I mean, Stephen. So I really think it's a wonderful idea for our city council to appoint and put someone in that position who is not a political figure, who's not a person who's behind the scenes, doing those kind of things. I think it would be really nice to appoint someone who is from the community, from who wants to bring a different perspective, because our city council has a tendency, they all have future ambitions and they all, are positioning if they want to run for mayor. Larkin is already thinking about running for at large, and that's just how they work. We know that's why they got into that. So it'd be refreshing to see someone. Doesn't mean you're going to change. I mean, you probably will change, in a while, but for the brief moment, it would be nice to have someone in there. So I don't know. I think that'd be great to have someone who's not like a former elected official or a former politician. So anyway, that was my 2 cents, but
I'll take that.
Yeah, I'll have to say this. I'm, I know the position has to be filled by a Democrat, and I know I'm not a Democrat. So it is nice the opportunity to see somebody, be appointed if that isn't already in the political space. I'm a fan, and I don't know if you can give your 2 cents on it, of being a citizen servant of the people for a short period of time. We elect the city council members to be the community's advocates making policy. And then I'm a big fan of the idea that, we all participate in our own way in how we grow our community and how we govern ourselves. So I like the idea of, people being, I'm going to serve for a little while, but I'm going to serve, and it's going to be my civic obligation because I'm in the right place at the right time, and then pass the baton off to the next person, so that we have a lot of churn, a lot of ideas going, and policy that most reflects the needs or wants of the community. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, ironically, as you noted, that this position has to be filled by a Democrat. The friend of mine who called me and encouraged me to do this is a Republican. And, you know, I think no matter what side you're on, a lot of us miss being able to have these civil conversations with each other where maybe we disagree on the logistics, but we ultimately agree on the goals, the outcomes that we want. We miss being able to, you know, not lose friends or coworkers or clients if you have an R or a D after your name. So, you know, coming in and just trying to do what I think is going to be best to further these projects and, you know, like I said, make sure that everybody can benefit from this continued growth is ultimately my goal.
Good. Hey, listen,
Well
you know,
said.
I've always felt that Charlotte is on the cusp of becoming the next new capital of the South. That we can actually pass Atlanta if we do things smart. We're still kind of a clay, you know, we still have room to grow smartly if we focus on infrastructure, focus on, you know, all the things that the city council has been voted on. But there are some people who don't really want us to become the new capital of the South. They want us to grow, but they don't really want the growing pains. So you have people in South Charlotte that love that we're growing, but they hate the airport noise, you know? So it's like this catch-22. You can't have growth unless we have more airplanes flying, you know, and so forth. So I don't know, how do you think you're going to deal with that, with the people who want to grow, but they don't want the problems of growing?
Well, I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier, that you know, if everybody can benefit from this growth in some way or another, you know, in their businesses, in their own communities, then the growth's going to be worth it. You know, if everything's just going to high-end, high-paying jobs that are being hired from out of state, you know, that are, you know, people coming here, people who are already here aren't benefiting from that. So if we can find ways to make sure that we're all growing along with this trajectory, you know, and if we do it smart so that, you know, we don't end up with the congestion and all that, I think this is going to be best for everyone. And I think we've seen that already. You know, there was a lot of pushback against the light rail, but as someone who's lived here my whole life, South End, there used to be nothing over there. And I lived in Noda for 4 years. I moved there before the light rail was completed there. Tons of development, and I'm seeing so many people benefiting from it. So even though these projects can seem daunting at times, they seem to always be paying off.
Excellent.
You know, it's interesting. I was in opposition to the light rail when it was first proposed, but since then I've become quite the believer in light rail. Not a fan of the streetcar. I still think that's a waste of money. But I'm a big fan of the light rail and the development that we've seen along the South Boulevard corridor, and then up to north, you know, up toward the university. So I'd like to see more of that style of development. Yeah. So it is interesting how you know, infrastructure is not necessarily like the sexy thing, but like it
Yeah.
can really, you know, benefit a lot of lives, because South End was an industrial wasteland pretty much when I first moved to Charlotte, and then because of the light rail, it is the hot new place,
Yeah.
and it's been an incredible growth story.
Well,
Speaking of growth
obviously,
stories,
hey, Stephen, obviously you've never been on that train waving around, you know, waving at people. So,
what
you know,
train?
that one that you said you don't like, the
Oh, the
what
streetcar, the
the
streetcar.
streetcar. The streetcar is really kind of fancy. It's like, you know, anyway, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, it's also a
Go ahead,
waste of the
Steve.
taxpayers' money. It's more expensive than light rail and less effective than a bus.
All right, go ahead, Stephen. What's your question?
Oh no, no, that's all good. Like light rails. I mean, streetcars are fun if they were cheaper, but they're not. Anyways, so one of the things with growth is actually city council has a role in it, and I want to know what your opinion on the city council's role with regards to the stadium. You know, we have a stadium, and you know the city gives, you know, little handouts to the stadium, so that, you know, whether it's the football stadium or the baseball stadium, or maybe even the new soccer stadium, to get growth into the city, especially because of the economic downturn in 2020 with the COVID shutdowns. What are your thoughts on perhaps the city council's role in promoting the construction of a new stadium, or renovating existing ones? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think like any of these infrastructure projects, it has to make sense. Obviously, if we're going to be investing in it, investing taxpayer money in it, it needs to benefit, local businesses that are around there. Um, you know, Also create and foster additional growth and development around there. I think we saw it with the BB&T ballpark. I don't know if you've ever been, but it's fantastic. And I think, outside of COVID, Uptown, for a long time was kind of, dead after 5 p.m. So having those things up there really brings in a lot of commerce in a centralized area. So we can invest in that in a way that people are profiting from it, then absolutely, I think city council should have a role.
Fantastic. Well, I gotta say, I like what I'm hearing. I like the fact that you're talking to us on the show. That you're not necessarily you don't seem like the kind of guy who's in it to enrich himself, sort of thing. So if folks like me want to try to help you out or advocate on your behalf, if the viewers of the show want to see if they can maybe support you in some way for your bid to be on the city council seat for the next 10 months, how can they do that?
Sure. So being that this is an appointed position, between now and really by the end of the day, Friday, when that public forum is being held, best thing anyone can do is reach out to either their district city council rep or any of the at-large members or all of city council just to express their support. And I have had numerous people reaching out on my behalf, and they've forwarded me responses they've been getting back. I've talked with some of the members of city council, and I do know that they have a genuine interest in truly vetting all the people who are applying and hearing from the community as to the level of support that these people are able to get.
Fantastic. So that means we have to just write a nicely worded and polite letter to our local city council member. That sounds fun.
We may have to
Yeah.
use a different name.
No, I like my district
Yeah,
rep.
yeah, we're all pretty good graces with our reps and our district reps. Well, listen, Josh, I know that you have to go, but is there anything else you want to add? I know this is what the decision. You have a community forum on Friday, then they'll vote on Monday. Anything else you want to add? I mean, you got what 1 minute, so
The
tell
floor
us.
is yours.
Yeah, the floor is yours.
Sure. Yeah. I would just encourage people, anyone who's interested, if you want to know anything more about me or what my intentions might entail, if able to serve these next 10 months, feel free to reach out to me directly. My personal email is joshua.lipack, L-I-P as in Paul, A-C-K, @gmail.com.
Excellent. Well, listen, I think it's wonderful that one of your friends who kind of pushed you or referred you to this is a Republican, because I agree. I mean, I think we just need more conversations with each other in this city. Is it going to happen this year? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Stephen and I have these arguments all the time.
I am always optimistic. I like it
Yes,
when people have friends across partisan
yeah,
aisles, especially in politics, that we
yeah.
can be friends even if we differ on things. Look at me, Christian and I, we are different on some things.
As long as you're not a Philadelphia Eagles fan in this city, I think you can get along with anyone. So I will say that, I would say that forever. So listen, we're going to switch to a topic, and thank you, Josh. If you need to clock out, you're welcome to, or you can stay, whatever you want to do. We're going to talk about this year, 2021. Is this going to be the year of the Latinx? I'm sorry, Mama Ruth is not on here and Barbara's not on here. But so, Stephen, you're going to have to represent all the Latinas in this conversation, since you are, your other half is a very strong Latina. I don't know. I think 2021 is
She's
going to
stronger
be,
than me.
yeah, well, I think 2021 is going to be the year of the Latinx, Latina, the Latino in America. I mean, this is going to be the breakout year. Biden has appointed so many individuals. We have it's such a growing influence here in Charlotte, in North Carolina, that one of the fastest growing segments. It is almost the majority. I mean, our school district is a majority minority school district, but a very large percentage of them growing are Latinos and Latinas. And so they are the future of this city. And so, I don't know. I think 2021 is going to be one of those breakout cities, years where you're going to see, I don't know. What do you think, guys? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, Mariana, my better half, she's always making jokes about the Reconquista. And I mean, I'm a big fan of tacos. So yeah, it's great. Taco truck on every
I-
corner. Wasn't that the thing in 2016?
that's right.
The Republicans are trying to say it was a bad thing, and I'm thinking, why is that a bad thing? That sounds
That's right.
awesome.
Josh, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, just real quick. I didn't want to cut you guys off. I look forward to watching the rest of the show later, but I do have to run. So thank you both for having me, and I'll look forward to seeing the rest later.
Josh,
right,
thank you so much. It was great having you.
Well, good
All
luck. And if you don't get the seat, please come back on. We talk about topics that have absolutely nothing to do with anything. And so we love to entertain. So please come back and join us. Thank you for coming on, though.
Cheers.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I appreciate it. Have a great day.
I don't know. He's like a nice guy. I mean,
I like him.
Yeah. I mean, I was impressed. He didn't seem, I don't know.
Seemed like a regular, normal, everyday person.
Yeah,
The exact kind of human being we want on city council.
I mean, we've had some city council members on here. I won't name them or whatever. And it's just, it seems very performative all the time. You know what I mean? And so it's nice to like
with some of them. The people that we like typically are not necessarily performative. They are who they are, and it's wonderful.
That's right. They are who they are. But it would be nice to have someone on city council who is kind of like that, because how I cringe all the time when I watch the city council meetings, and I do every week. Whenever a couple of them speak, one specifically Larkin or Tariq, Julie.
See, I don't know why you don't like Tariq and Larkin.
It's not that I don't like them. It's just when they talk, they're so performative. It's just like it's like they can't just like ask questions. How does this pothole going to be filled? This, you know what I mean? Like simple questions like we would ask like in a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
They're the person in the meeting that has to just give like a monologue, and everyone else has to just go, oh, what's the question?
Yeah, but they all do that though. Like every single one of them. I think the only one who didn't, so the only city council members that I can think of off the top of my head who haven't typically done that are Ed Driggs.
Yeah, he doesn't do it. You're right.
He doesn't do it. And who was the other guy? He recently retired.
The dentist?
No, not the dentist, not Justin.
I know who you're talking about.
Phipps. Yeah. He didn't typically. Yeah, Phipps was a cool. I liked him, and then of course you have James, and James is like super charismatic, but he's kind of performative too.
Yeah.
Julie doesn't do that. I don't think she does that much either.
Who?
Julie Eisel. I don't think she pontificates quite as much.
She doesn't do it, but the questions she asks are questions like you should ask, like behind this. You know what I mean? I mean, she's
like leading questions for
yeah. And so, but yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, they all have their pluses.
But I will say this: one model that the Charlotte City Council has that I like is that a lot of the deliberations that happen when they're discussing things happen in the view of the public, so on the dais.
Yes.
So a lot of what we're seeing in city council meetings are the actual deliberations. And most politics, like say in Raleigh or in Washington D.C., all that happens behind the scene. But I do like the fact that it happens in full view of the public at the local level in Charlotte. Again, that forces these politicians to be performative because you want to give speeches and you want to talk to your base and you want to have a soundbite for this or that. So you take the good with the bad, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean,
but enough about them. Let's talk about Latinos.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't know, Stephen. I mean, I just think that 2021, it just feels like, or at least maybe I'm just being really optimistic since I just recovered from COVID and I'm feeling better.
Which I'm glad for. I'm very glad.
Well, thank you very much.
So now you can go maskless in public because you're immune, right?
No, I still have to. Actually, the thing, I was going to tell you this before, but the thing is to now wear 2 masks.
Oh my God, that's so silly.
No. I mean, because it's double the protection, and I see why. Because
why not 5 masks?
as long as it's comfortable, because we can't wear N95 masks or you don't have one. If you have an N95 mask, that's great. But what they're doing now is because these masks that I have are pretty good, but they're very flimsy. So it makes sense to put 2 of them on. And I've tried them. And, the ones with the elastic are so much easier. The other ones, obviously, anyway, that's another story. So I don't know. I mean, I just think that this year is going to be the year that that our Latinx community really kind of breaks out of its shell, because we went through so much, or at least many of them feel like they've been through so much in the last 4 years of just being marginalized and so forth. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, do you feel like it's going to be?
I will say, I really don't know. I mean, granted, as we were saying before, there are a lot of folks who are optimistic that Trump is not in the White House, right? Oh, we got Biden, new administration, blah blah blah, and I'm just not a fan of of Biden and the people he's putting in. And I dislike him as much as I dislike Trump. And a lot of people are going to be like, "How could you?" And
Yeah.
that's mostly because, I'm weird in the sense that I don't necessarily base what I like on policy.
Yeah.
Sorry, on personality. I base what I like or dislike on policy. And so there are a lot
Okay.
of policies that were, part of, let's say, the Obama years that I
Yeah.
really don't like. Now,
Yeah.
maybe Biden will reverse those
Mhm.
policies, right? Like, for
Mhm.
example, the kids in cages at the border. That
Yeah, he did.
started under Obama. Now, if Biden ends those,
He did
cool,
yesterday.
man. Like then I'm all right.
I mean,
But if he doesn't, but I'm gonna be skeptical until it
yeah.
happens. So
So will you say, this is interesting you're saying this, because those of us who are just elated that we have a little bit of like normalness, I mean, and I was joking about we need to do a show about Trump PTSD because I do think that I kind of have it. I feel it's so refreshing to have like to see like normal politicians are them speak at the press conference, what those things, and there's not all this just this stuff that's thrown out that just drives you crazy. And so, but I'm still like going through this like time where I just think, okay, something's gonna happen. Something's gonna because we went through 4 years of every single day something crazy was said or something,
stuff is still happening for
yeah,
whatever reason, though. It's not getting headlines.
okay,
And like for example, when a couple years ago, when Trump said, "Hey, we're going to put troops by the oil fields in northern Syria, where like the
yeah,
Kurds live," and he just said it, and like the corporate press had a collective like explosion of, "Oh my God, he said the quiet part out loud. How dare you?" Now, because I follow the reports about like what's going on in foreign policy wise, Biden orders more troops into northern Syria to protect the oil fields. Like I think it's on his second day or his first
yeah,
day.
okay.
And it's like, okay, well, if it was awful and terrible and Trump did it, why is it not awful and terrible now that Biden's doing it? It doesn't, it seems like every 4 years,
Yeah,
people put down their protest signs, walk to
yeah.
the other side of the street and pick up the other guy's signs.
But
And,
don't you,
it
but
just
don't,
seems very strange.
yeah, but don't you think the difference, the difference is, and maybe this highlighted the difference. The difference is maybe there are those same things going along, but it feels less dickish. You know what I mean? I mean, when Trump
I
said
mean, we're
those,
still bombing fishing villages in Yemen.
no, but it's I don't know how to describe that, but it just doesn't feel so chaotic. It feels it just feels
Yeah, it's orderly violence.
yeah, yes. Well, and no, I understand. No, I understand what you're saying. I completely understand what you're saying. But I think the excitement from people is quite honestly, there's just less chaos. It's less. It just feels that way. Now, is it actually? And you have a good point. Is it actually less? I mean, he ended the private prisons yesterday with the executive order. He ended the separation, zero tolerance to separation of children. Those kind of things just seem so. They just seems like it means so much because when he did it, he didn't. He just did it so meanly and so like viciously that maybe it amplified what really was happening because we know those cages were there when Obama was there.
Mhm.
But when Trump did it, he did it like such a dick. we're going to separate kids because Mexicans are murderers and this. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and here's an issue with that I don't think
Yeah.
got any good press, and I think it's weird why. So a lot of
Yeah.
kids were actually being trafficked, and
Mhm.
so the adults that they were with, and this is not every single one, but it wasn't
Yeah.
an insignificant number. You have a young child and an adult, and that adult is not biologically related to that kid, and that kid is
Yep.
being trafficked. That was a problem. And the people at the border patrol, local police department, state police, they just didn't know how to handle it. There's like no precedent. Like, what do you do? And it's such a sensitive topic. And it's like, well, separate them until, and you're going to get those instances where the
Yep.
kid is separated from their mom or dad or their uncle or their older brother or whatever, and that's just horrible. And how do you mitigate that? And then you're
Yep.
going to have those instances where the kid is being separated from the trafficker, which is
Mhm.
better. So it's like it's such a weird situation, right?
Yeah.
Because there's nuance there, but for
Yeah.
whatever reason, we we don't like, as Americans, I don't think we like
Yeah.
nuance in our political
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that I just think the delivery and how it's being done now is so much more less chaotic, and I think people are
It's more
it's
establishment. I will agree with you on that.
yeah, yeah, and no, no, and for many people, when you because we went through 4 years of just chaos and just like you couldn't even focus on what was going on because it was just this craziness. And as a result of that, it was just like for people, it was like, God, I just want some back to normalcy. Does it mean like in 2 months? Or in 2 years, we're going to all go, oh, we're probably going to go, progressives are going to be, disappointed because maybe certain things aren't going fast enough. Yeah, I think we're going to get back to that. But I just think that, it's just like having the crazy neighbor with the loud music and finally they shut the music down. You're like, oh, thank goodness. I don't know. I just get the sense from talking to people that there's just like, it's this niceness to have this quiet back to normal kind of thing. But I agree with you. We have to remind ourselves when it was back to normal, we didn't like that because there were a lot of policies that we were against, and so forth. So I don't know. I just think it's nice just for a little bit, even if it lasts until the summer. You
Mhm.
know, I just think it's nice to not have to wake up every day and think about what something stupid, Trump said or whatever the case may be. But
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people talk about the chaos, and I gotta say, I never noticed it because I don't really follow
yeah.
the corporate press. I follow my local newspapers. I keep up on NPR sometimes, but mostly I just pay attention to my community that I'm in, and
Mhm.
everything just pretty much seemed like, whatever. Every now and then, like, did you hear about the tweet? I'm like, the tweet
Yeah.
doesn't affect me. Like, I don't
Yeah.
really care. And I'd be in the office, and my coworkers
Mhm.
would be like, "Oh, the world's going to heck in a handbasket." Like,
Yeah.
there was this thing that happened. I'm like, "Yeah, that happened 3,000 miles away," or this thing that happened. Yeah, that was 1,000 miles away. Like in another state or another country. Like, what about Charlotte? What about North Carolina? Like, one
Yeah.
bad thing happened over here. Yeah, that's rough, and it's being taken care of. But I wouldn't say that means the whole world is falling apart. You know.
I will agree with you. I think, and we've had these conversations here before, that there's about 10% of the population that are really like political news junkies, and the rest of the 90% are just living their life. And the 10% of us who do things like this, we sometimes forget that not everyone is
We get caught up in it.
exactly, and because that's what we do. I mean, that's just us. That's what we do. And the people who are in the news, that's what they do. They
That's how they
try to
make their money.
exactly. That's how they make their money.
Gotta push the Russiagate conspiracy.
That's right. They got to do
Gotta talk
that.
about gay frogs.
But when you get to the next layer, they're like, hey, who's winning the Super Bowl this weekend?
Yeah.
Or what's going on? Are the kids going back to school? This, and a lot of times they hear stuff from us, and maybe because of we're so passionate about this, it just so yeah. I mean, I get that it's always going to be that way. I don't think it's ever going to change. You're always going to have with social media and all that kind of stuff. People are just going to be they see a post and it excites them and whatever. And so I don't know, we talked about this briefly. I know this is completely off the topic, but I don't know. We have a lot to feel about Latinos and Latinx this year, which I think it is going to be a great year for us. We talked about this last week about how people, I can't remember, you mentioned something last week, and I'm losing my train of thought. And I don't know if you remember, but about how people, we shouldn't keep the Q&A people quiet. We shouldn't keep Trump off.
Oh yeah, censorship is bad. Censorship is very bad.
And I watched the show last night, and I told you how the things that I had noticed, how dickish I was being last week, and I was listening to what you were saying, and Barbara was pretty much agreeing with you. And I said, I'd rather keep him quiet, and this. It was nice to have Trump shut up just for our protection, because he was creating so much chaos. But I do agree that there is that fine line. I don't know. I mean, historians are going to look back at the time where we shut Trump up, and he, like right now, he doesn't post anything. Did that really help us during that time period? Did it help calm things down?
I think it made it worse.
I don't know if it made it worse, but I will say this. It didn't make it worse, but what it did was all of those Republicans who were outraged after the insurrection, because people have such short-term memory, 2 weeks later, they're now defending him. And I think that if we had kept him on that, it would have taken longer to defend him. But because there was this quietness for 2 weeks, and they looked around, they measured everyone, and they go, all right, let's get back to defending him. So now they're all defending him again. And so I do think it helped us in a very, very short-term moment. But I do think in the overall, we kind of hurt ourselves, because it wouldn't have allowed a lot of those Republicans to immediately act like it never happened and defend him. Does that make sense?
Maybe.
Not really.
Mean, no, it all depends on your perspective. I'm kind of outside of that, team right, team left, kind of going at each other kind of thing. I do find it funny that the riot that happened at Capitol Hill is called an insurrection, because it was just a riot that got out of hand. That those people are definitely they're going to face consequences for violating good conduct, right? The dudes who are smearing poo on those paintings, for example, like that's not cool. Yeah,
There was that.
Yeah, you missed that. So like, yeah, I mean, there are people who they're going to get punished, and they are right to. But we do have an example in 2020 of an actual insurrection that didn't really get any news. So there was this place called the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in, I think, Portland, where it's like 10 city blocks were taken over by a bunch of anarchists, and they said, "This is our house now." And there was no city services going to that area, no cops going to that area. It was like, there were borders and checkpoints for the people who were there. That's an actual example of an insurrection where people said, in this territory, Uncle Sam has no purchase. And like that was that, and it became very violent. There was like 5 or 6 people who got murdered, because of rampant gang violence that happened in that area between these various political groups. It was a weird thing to see on American soil. That didn't get a lot of press, though. It's very strange. It's an interesting thing. People are probably going to write books and essays about it. But having a bunch of MAGA bros and a dude like the QAnon shaman like that, these people are absolutely ridiculous. That was nowhere near an insurrection. It's unfortunate that 5 people died that day. One as a result of being beat to death, another woman got shot by the cops, and then 3 more just had health they're older, and so they like had a heart attack or a stroke or something, and that's all a tragedy for their families, and that's very sad. But the coverage is very strange, at least for me.
Well,
It's kind of like an outsider looking in.
yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that because Trump has been quieted
Hmm.
right now, people have very, very short-term memories, and the Republicans are starting to think he's a victim.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah. And from their perspective, they're not wrong, because a lot of these politicians, and even actually international politicians, so like
yeah,
AMLO, the president
yeah,
of Mexico,
mhm.
a guy
Oh,
that,
horrible. He's
yeah,
terrible.
yeah, my better half, she like will just like, she'll read
Oh, he's
something in the
terrible.
news and she'll be like, "Oh my
He,
God, AMLO's destroying my country. I can't believe it." I'm
he
like, "What?"
is. He is.
It's like, you should
I
become
don't
an
know a lot about
American.
it, but I don't know a lot about it, but I know, we've had Fernando Trevino on the show, who's a political consultant. He was one who helped run Tom Steyer's campaign, and he's run some politicians in Mexico's campaigns as well. And I see his postings about how terrible he's, like a populist.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. AMLO's a straight up like
yeah,
populist,
yeah,
and that's just,
he's like,
he's like a
COVID's a
Mexican
hoax.
Trump.
Yeah, he is. He's like, COVID's a hoax, this, and he just got COVID, last week.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah. Oh,
and
so this is really funny for the
yeah,
the Latino audience. If you might
yeah,
know this already, but AMLO is fond of saying that, oh, if you're a good person, a person of good moral standing, you can't get COVID. It only affects
yes.
evil, wrong, like people. It's like, well, you just proved everyone's point.
Well, but Steve, that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that, well, I mean, this no, we're gonna
Yeah,
digress on.
well, but what I was mean to say
Yeah,
is, even guys like him, Angela Merkel
Germany,
of Germany,
uh,
the Prime Minister of the UK,
Britain, the hair guy, yeah, yeah,
Boris
yeah,
Johnson,
Boris Johnson.
um, um, Macron of France.
Mhm.
They all made an official, like a statement of world
Yeah,
leaders, and there are many world leaders who are in there saying, we
mhm,
don't like the fact that Twitter can just
mhm, yeah,
deplatform the sitting president of the United States. Their
mhm,
thought being, if it could happen to that guy, it can happen to
yeah.
us. And
Well,
it's this thing where there's this old, it's from a TV show, I think, or an
yeah,
author, but like, when you cut out a man's tongue, you're not proving him a liar, you're just telling the world you're afraid of what he might say.
yeah,
And so people who are already on your team, like these
yeah,
Republicans, for
yeah.
example, they're going to say, "Oh, this is an example
But
of the liberal bias in tech. We got to do," and they're going to overreact, and it's going to make things worse. It was just,
yeah,
I
but
think it was a bad choice.
yeah, but you know what? I mean, Twitter I mean, it's a free market. Twitter's a private company.
But there
Twitter,
is a principle
yeah,
in the United States, a
yeah,
principle of free speech and free
yeah.
conversation. Now,
But you know
that
what?
principle is
Yeah,
protected at the federal level, like
yeah,
as part of the First Amendment, but it's an
well,
idea that's American.
well, I mean, I will say that Trump is really not a victim, because no one kept him from speaking. He could have just done what other presidents have done for hundreds of years or decades, and gone in front of the podium and spoke if he had something to say. He could have issued a press release. He could have done,
Hmm.
but he wanted to be such a TikTok teen that the only way that he was able to
TikTok.
communicate was, no, I mean, that's really what he wanted to be. He was like, oh, I want to be a TikTok teen. And just because they cut his Twitter off and his Facebook off didn't mean he couldn't speak. He was the president of the United States. He could have still gone up and spoken. He can still speak today. I mean, it's just that he liked that, it was easier for him to do that, was his avenue. But I do think they should, like, reinstate his privileges, so to speak, so we can hear him be crazy again, because we need him to be crazy during the impeachment, so people can go, okay, now I know why I got to impeach him.
Well,
Because
I'd have to say, one of the worse than the banning from Twitter or Facebook, or really all the social media outlets,
yeah,
the thing that really was a really bad mistake, in my opinion, and is a real threat to the principle of free speech in this country, not the law. I'm talking about the principle of the matter, is when um, the social media app Parler was
yeah,
effectively killed, because not only did Amazon Web
yeah,
Services say, we're not going to host you because of X, Y, and Z, a
mhm,
standard that they don't hold Facebook to, or any of the other things to. I said, oh, you don't moderate violence.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, well, neither does Facebook. I mean, the
yeah,
Christchurch shooting in New Zealand was live streamed on Facebook. They didn't get deplatformed, right? So when that service was deplatformed from the servers, right, in breach of contract, and then there was a lot of pressure on every other server like
Yeah,
service, right? Because Amazon's not the only game in town, but there was
yeah,
pressure
yeah,
being put on all these other companies that
yeah.
offer web
GoDaddy,
services.
all
But
of them.
we're
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
not gonna have you. It effectively killed the app, an app that had millions of people who are typically conservative. Now,
Yeah,
I know from my own family and friends who are on the conservative side of the American political spectrum, when they saw that, right,
mhm.
their perception is this is the left coming to silence us where we go to talk.
Yeah,
And that may
free
not be
market,
right. That may
free
not be
market,
right, but that is their perception, and
free
that just
market,
engenders bitterness, and that's not a good thing.
free market.
I'm talking about the principle of free speech, my friend, which is
No,
very,
I,
very
I,
important.
okay, okay.
And
Well, then,
let me ask you this, to
okay.
the free market, aspect, did these big companies, did they become these big companies without getting a government grant of any kind at any point in time? So
Yeah,
did Amazon become the big web service that it is without getting any government grants? The answer is no. Did Facebook become what it is without any government grants? The
yeah.
answer is no.
I,
None of these big
yeah,
companies got
I,
where they are without government support at some point,
I,
meaning that they're not totally in the free market because we have this
I,
mixed economy.
no, no, no. I hear you, Stephen. I guess what I'm just saying is that, and I know we kind of had this conversation last week and whatever. It's nice to finally, like for me, because so much of my life was always on the outside. I was like the non-mainstream, you know,
Okay, I got you. Yeah, yeah.
what I mean? And so so much of my life, I felt like I had been fighting the mainstream,
But
fighting this.
now you're in it. You feel like you're
Yeah,
part of the
yeah, yeah,
club
yeah.
now. I
So,
got
so,
you.
so now that I'm part of other coalitions that are more of the majority in this, it's nice for a while to be on top. And
I
I
don't know
can
what that's like.
no, but I'm saying is that I can see how, you know, white men traditionally in the past who were on top, they controlled everything. It was this, and we were always fighting for inclusion and how they just wanted to hang on and hang on and hang on. I can see why they wanted to hang on because it's nice to be able to tell people, if you don't like it, remember I told you back in 2016 when I ran and Pittenger said, if you don't like if you don't like the things that we're doing in North Carolina, move. Move out of the country, move. Remember, and we were like, how dare you? This.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
I can see why you would say something like that because now that we have the majority of progressive in Charlotte, with our, I think I think what 99% of the precincts here in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County voted for Biden. We had a blue wave. We got this new county commissioner in who no one even heard of, who beat Matthew Ridenhour, simply because she ran as a Democrat. And she's kind of crazy, and so
It's kind of disheartening actually, the partisan possession, as it were, of many voters. It's like, oh, if you got a D or an R next to your name, I don't you could be a complete psychopath or
no. I understand that because there was a time when if you had an R, that's all you needed. Like
yeah,
it, like
yeah.
like in Monroe County, you can be crazy and bad, but if you have an R, they're going to vote for you. Dan Bishop's crazy racist old man. He's a white nationalist, but he has an R. So I do understand with
It's a
that.
good argument against universal suffrage.
No. So
I'm kidding, everybody. I'm kidding. I'm a big
I
fan of the vote. I'm just making a joke.
but I do understand that with that uh, comes responsibility, comes
Yes.
comes trying not to repeat, trying not to do what you hated.
Yeah, with every right comes a
Yes.
associated responsibility.
And so I do know that, and that's the hardest part. The hardest part is because you want to go, okay, I'll do it next week. you know,
I want to enjoy the high right now. Just come back to me next week.
It's like when you win the Super Bowl now, you only get to enjoy winning the Super Bowl for like 2 weeks, and then no one even remembers who won the Super Bowl. I mean, who won the Super Bowl last year? Kansas City Chiefs. You only know that because they're in it again this year.
I
You
know that the Jets won Super Bowl III,
Well,
69.
so anyway, so I know there comes responsibility, and I know that kind of stuff, but I will have to say, it's nice to live in a city and live in a region where I'm actually part of the mainstream and the majority, and so it's been such a long time since I've actually lived in a city that was like that. I mean, I don't live in Boston where it's been liberal for decades, or Atlanta, or Dallas.
It's funny. There's so I'm originally from New York, and
Yeah,
New York is pretty blue, and a lot of people are moving out of New York, and
yeah,
and it's not necessarily because of the weather, although
yeah.
that's a big reason for me. One has to wonder, like, are some of these ideas as good as people make them out to
Uh,
be?
yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's a big. We talk about this all the time, and I know we're going to be running out of time here, but I, I think there's a really big danger of having all Democrats on our county commission and our school board, or whatever it is.
You gotta have
You
competition.
have,
Competition is good
you
in
have to
so
have
many
diversity.
things.
And one of the reasons is because when you have all Democrats except maybe two Republicans, it forces those two Republicans to be crazy Republicans,
Hmm.
because they have to do something so outlandish to capture the people that voted for them. So it forces Tariq to be crazy, to
Yeah,
act
yeah.
like he's a DJ, or whatever. And it
And
for like
even on the Democrat side, it
yeah,
means that the election
yes,
that matters is the
yes,
primaries.
yes,
And, who wins the primaries? Usually the
the
most
ones who are
extreme candidate.
yeah,
And so, it's a recipe for the Democrats becoming more extreme, the
yes,
Republicans becoming more extreme. And the rest of us
yeah,
normal people are like, what? These guys are
yeah,
crazy. I don't like any of them. And,
I agree.
whenever the people start looking around being like, I don't feel like these people represent me, you get this sort of people stop looking at the local government as a
Yep,
mechanism by which to work with the
yep,
community to like foster community goals, and more of like the enemy to be
yeah,
combated. And then people hunker down, and they
yeah,
go to their political tribe, and then things shut down, like in a way where like we can't move forward, and
yeah,
on a path that
yeah,
enriches communities. It's not necessarily the best recipe for
yeah.
success.
Yeah, I agree with you. So listen, we've run out of time here, and this has been really a great show, and I can't wait next week till we have Barbara and Mama Ruth and everyone else back on. We need to have Dr. B back on to kind of educate us on the new strands of the COVID-19. Maybe he can educate us. Uh, I I'll tell you, I told you that I tested positive when I was leaving Georgia. And fortunately, I got the test when I got back. So I was able to isolate, and I have been away from everyone. And I'm very fortunate because that strand, that South African strand or English strand or whatever, had gotten to Georgia. So I could see how it spread so easily, because if I had not gotten tested and I came back feeling good, I could have spread the strand to someone or whatever. So luckily it was caught. So anyway, my point is, when I tested positive in Georgia, came home self-isolated. I got my own test because I'm feeling so much better. I tested on Saturday. I went to CVS. Novant at Atrium will not give you test unless you show symptoms, or if you already tested positive, they think the test is wasted because of the fact that you're already positive, so they don't want to give it to you, which I think is
And
crazy.
it's too bad you can't just go to the pharmacies and buy tests. I mean, like, what's
Well,
up with that?
well, luckily with CVS, you can just go if you sign up, but you got to do it yourself. And that was scaring me. Anyway, I did it myself. I tested positive again, so I'm still positive for those doodads. Once I tested positive, I guess it automatically goes to the county health department. The way the system works, I got a text from the North Carolina Health Department saying isolate yourself, giving me standards. I was just talking about that yesterday, and I get a call from the city of Charlotte and the county contact tracing people.
Hmm.
They interviewed me, they talked to me, they asked me how I felt, and I gave them all the information. So now I'm in the database, so I count towards like
Ooh, you're in the government database.
yeah, yes, so I count towards that. They told me, okay, stay isolated until February the 2nd, then you can go back out. I'm like, yay, yay. And you know, and so I was really happy they did that because it helps people. If they also ask you if you need assistance, like with food or things like that. I think that's really, really important to keep those. But I think what it really highlighted is how reactive, and I wish I had said something to the person who's running for city council. Our city council and our county, not really our county commission, but our city council has always so reactive. You know, they test people who have symptoms. We should set up like these testing sites in South End just for people who are going out and this, just to see when they're feeling good, because if you can catch it when they feel good, we can keep it from spreading to other
Well,
people.
the better model for that is tests and even vaccinations at our local pharmacies. It's not like
Yes,
they don't know how to do
yes,
flu stuff, and
yes,
the big and that's a really good idea.
yeah,
And you know, CVS and Walgreens, they already have the infrastructure to
mhm,
distribute massive amounts of vaccines. You know,
mhm,
they do 3 million vaccines, you know, a year, easy
yeah,
peasy, which is much more aggressive than what the government's saying they want to do. And the
yeah,
problem, and you know, and the cost would be low because the infrastructure is already there. But
yeah,
for some reason, the state and the federal government, they want to set up independent vaccination sites and spend all
mhm,
this money. Why, when we already have the infrastructure
yeah,
there? And you, I mean, you can't tell me
yeah,
that a company like CVS wouldn't
yeah,
just do it for free for the advertising. Come
exactly.
on in, get your COVID vaccine, buy a
And while you're
snack
there,
on the way out.
exactly. And while you're there, buy some milk or buy, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with
and
you.
it helps
Yeah, yeah,
everybody out. Like, you know, people get the vaccines, they get it for free.
yeah,
CVS gets all 'cause like because how much would it cost? Like, oh, it costs, you know, the millions. Well, how much is their
yeah,
advertising budget? Well, their advertising budget is more than what the vaccines would cost. Well,
yeah,
great, they'll do it for free for the free
yeah,
advertising. And this is a way to make it cheaper, right? So
mhm,
the government doesn't have to spend all this money setting up new vaccination sites, so they can
yeah,
spend that money in promoting the production of more vaccines because
yeah,
we already have the ground level
mhm,
infrastructure. And I have no idea why
mhm,
these people in Raleigh or in
yeah,
Washington who are
yeah,
so smart
mhm,
just don't want to take advantage of the
yeah,
private infrastructure that we already have in the United States. Because one of the advantages of the United States
mhm,
is that we have a lot of private infrastructure for a
yeah,
lot of things. And
mhm,
so many companies are
yeah,
more than happy to
yeah,
cooperate with state, local, and
mhm.
national government initiatives to service the community. Like, I just don't
So,
know why that's not a thing in the conversation.
so listen, we've gone a little over, but I have a question because this is a great conversation. Do you have the confidence? Well, I know what you're going to say already, but would you agree that that we should be more confident that something like that has the ability to happen rather than under the past administration?
I have no idea.
I get the sense from the new administration that they're willing to listen to these kind of things and say, if that's what's going to work, let's do it. You know what I mean? Because they've issued the 100-day. This is rather than the old administration was more like, no, 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 states are doing it. It's a
Well,
whole.
so here's my thoughts on this.
Okay. Yeah.
Using private infrastructure to distribute a vaccine, right,
Yeah.
under Trump was probably more likely because he's a businessman, he knows business, and he's happy to give
Yeah.
it to the states. And
Yeah.
then it
Yeah.
would be some states, like
Yeah.
say, I don't know, like maybe in South Carolina, for example,
Yeah.
they'd be like, yeah, let's do that because you know
Okay.
the infrastructure's there. We don't have a whole lot of money, but other states like New York wouldn't do it because the people who are in control in Albany just want to have their hands in everything. This
Okay.
administration, I'm not sure that they would be likely to go that model without a lot of grassroots support
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I don't think Biden's ever been in the private sector. So
Yeah.
he's
But
always been in government. So maybe he just doesn't know that that thing is an option.
no, no. But I guess what I'm saying is that uh, we know that Trump called himself a business person, but he's not really a business person. I mean, you can't compare Trump to, let's say, the CEO of Bank of America or CEO of CVS or whatever.
I
He
mean, I
he was,
could. It just wouldn't be a good comparison.
no, yeah, you're right, right. So Trump had that ability to do it, and he didn't do it. And
Did he
so,
really? Because the vaccine only like came online like the last month of his presidency.
Yeah, but now we're learning that Operation Warp Speed was a disaster. It wasn't organized properly. They lied about how many actual vaccines we had and all that kind of stuff. And so now that they've been able to actually look at what they said we had, we didn't, which is why they just ordered 200 million more vaccines. And so I just think that I think that with the new administration, and you're right, I agree. I do think there's so much pressure from all of us to reopen schools. I want to get these schools opened. I want to open businesses as safely as we can, but we can't do it until we focus on testing people and giving vaccines. And so we should be like vaccinating all the teachers first. It seems like to me, well, 65
Yeah,
and
and
over.
I mean, if you could go into any pharmacy and get a
Yeah,
vaccine, go into
yeah,
Harris Teeter, get your
yeah,
vaccine at the pharmacy.
yeah.
Go into Walmart, get your vaccine at the pharmacy.
Because we can,
Go to
we can,
CVS, like it's there
yeah,
if you need it, right?
we
Then
can do that now with the flu shot. Yeah,
yeah, we can do that now
yeah,
with the flu shot. So like, here's the thing, like if you had that, like in the Charlotte area, we have
yeah,
800,000 people, right?
yeah,
More or less. So maybe you'd only need, well, like how much would you need for herd immunity? Maybe
yeah,
500,000 shots.
mhm,
We
yeah,
could probably get that, produced by the
yeah,
big companies that make these things within
yeah,
like 2 or 3 months. And anyone who wants it can just go in and get a shot, and then we can start going about our
yeah.
normal lives
Well,
instead of having to set up all these sites.
yeah, the
But I
site.
don't know. I don't know that the folks who are in control of this will even
Well,
think of that as an option.
yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I agree with you. I hope we do, and I hope they realize because this
Write your
is,
congressman. That's
yeah,
all the
because,
viewers of Fan Dulce.
yeah.
Write your congressman.
I
We
mean,
want all options on the table.
they just ordered 200 million more vaccines.
Mhm.
So theoretically, we should have enough vaccines to really vaccinate about 70 or 80% of people by May if we
Yeah,
get that dosage.
and that should be enough.
Yeah, that should be enough. And so people like me who unfortunately caught it, I've got some immunity. I still need to get my vaccine. People like me also have to be very responsible. I can't go out because I'm still maybe contagious. I don't want to, do other people, it just sounded terrible. All right,
Wow. Oh boy. On that note,
so we have run out of time. Hey, Stephen, this has been good, just us two today.
yeah. Look at that.
I think we carried the show, and Bernie is just as excited about the show.
Bernie was just a hanger-on socialist, like he usually is.
Yeah. So,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But
so
not really.
no, we really no, Stephen. We really do need to have a show to explain to people the difference between socialism and communism and
Yeah, it's a
because
really big difference,
because
and
people
yeah.
because people are like, I don't want to be a socialist. Well, you don't want to be like Switzerland? Oh, I love Switzerland. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't want to be like the black socialists. That's really what they mean. They mean
So
the black.
so
Brown
so
socialists.
socialist is like a big broad spectrum of
Yes,
ideology, of different ways to structure a society. I
that's right.
dislike all of them, but they are, you got to be an honest person when you talk about these things.
Okay, so we're going to end, but I just have to ask you this question because it's just funny. Would you rather have a socialist or a fascist? If
The
you had
devil
those two.
the devil that you know. So we live under a fascism according to Giovanni Gentili,
Okay,
and that's what we know. So sure, why not?
okay, all right. Well, interesting. All right.
But if you
Okay.
don't know who Giovanni Gentili is or what the
No.
old school Italian fascism is, I would rather neither. I don't like either
Yeah.
of them. I think they're both bad, but eh, that's a really bad comparison. It's
Yeah,
like,
I know, I know,
would you
I
rather
know.
get your
It's
left arm cut off or your right arm cut off? Well, I
it's like
don't know
saying,
if I'd rather any of them.
would you rather be stabbed or hung? I mean, it's like, those are the only choices. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
all right. Well, listen, thank you everyone who's joined us on Coffee and Padusa. This has been a really fun show. And we're going to end by go around the Brady Bunch screen. There's only three of us. So, Stephen, tell us where you're going to be, and then we'll end the show. And that will be it for this week. So go ahead.
I'm just gonna be around town, just living my life, being who I am, writing some emails and stuff like that. Like I got nothing exciting going on. So that's about it. Reading books. I'm reading a lot of books. Read a book, people. It's a lot of fun.
Words are words are hard. So
Words are things.
words are hard. I will be here. I will be in isolation until February the 2nd. And so I am getting better every day, but I still feel a little bit. But you know, this COVID thing is very serious, and I do hope that people are able to get out and get vaccinations, and we're able to reopen schools safely. You know, I really believe I've been debating about this because they're talking about, you know, reopen schools and not reopen schools and dangerous. I think we need to get to the point where we just say, in 100 days, we're going to reopen schools, and we got to do whatever we need to do to keep them safe. Masks, whatever we need to do. We just got to set a date. The reason people are upset about it is because they keep like, oh, we're open, we're not open, we're open, we're not open, and there's not any of that. And so I also think that all of those, this is my joke for the day, all of those people who've been hounding us about reopening schools because their kids are being ratty at home and all that kind of stuff, I think they should be all put in one school. All their parents should teach it, and it should be called Mask U University. Okay, yeah, that was a bad joke.
Yeah, that wasn't funny.
I was working on that joke all week long. I think I forgot. I tried to steal that one from Jenny James Gunn, but I guess I missed that one.
Keep working.
Yeah. Okay. So we want to thank you for joining us at Coffee and Panduce. Thank you for Josh Lipack, who joined us, who is trying to be appointed for Charlotte City Council. Seems like a really nice guy.
Yeah. If you like what he said,
yeah.
feel free to write your local city council member about, you know, hey, I think this would be a good choice for the seat for the interim period. You know, give your support to people who you think will represent you and your community the best.
Exactly. And so, listen, thank you very much. We miss you, Mama Ruth. We hope you're able to feel better. Barbara, we miss you, and everyone else who joins us. And next week, we will see you on Coffee and Panduce. So we'll wave bye.
Take it easy, everyone.
Bye.